The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Our guest today, Adela Peskorz, is the Young Adult Services Coordinator for the Minneapolis Public Library. She'll be talking with Mary Grusin, Program Director for the Loft, and poets John Minczeski and Linda Wing. They'll be describing a program that the Minneapolis Public Library and Loft presented in the summer of 1993, WordWorks, a series of writing workshops for young adults. Later on in the program, we'll be hearing from some young authors themselves. Tierza Langston, Claire Barone, and Najia Kweik will be talking about their writing and sharing some samples with us.
Last fall, the Minneapolis Public Library became the first public library in the state to create a young adult services department for its patrons between the ages of 12 and 18. At that time, I began contacting local community agencies and organizations in search of prospective collaborators for a series of programs that would appeal to young adults. It was my great good fortune to make one of my first calls to the Loft, which is a prominent Minneapolis-based literary arts organization, where Mary Grusin, one of my guests this evening, answered my call and met my proposal with an extremely warm and enthusiastic response. Together, we created WordWorks, a series of writing workshops for teens taught by professional writers. These classes were offered free of charge at a number of Minneapolis Public Library branches, and this past summer, the summer of 1993. Except for Real Poems for Real Lives, which ran on 2 consecutive Saturdays, each class ran for 4 sessions. And with that introduction, I will turn to my guests and let you know who they are. First, there is Mary Grusin, who I mentioned, Program Director at the Loft. Thank you for being here. And the poet John Minczeski, who taught the Making a Poem class at our Washburn branch. And then there is Linda Wing, a poet and writer, who taught the very popular Writing Outside the Lines. Again, thank you all for being my guests here this evening. Rounding out the series, there were 3 other classes. One was Conrad Balfour's Participating in a Global Exchange, also Roseanne Lloyd's class, Real Poems for Real Lives, as well as Sandra Benitez's class, Remembering Ourselves. Let me begin with my first question then. Now, there are a lot of aspects that go into creating a program like this, Mary, as you know, and I was very appreciative of your enthusiastic response. When you heard my proposal and thought about this project, I was wondering how you thought this could fit into the Loft's mission and what you thought would work well within the program structure for you and for the Loft.
Well, it was a winning proposal from the beginning, I think for 2 reasons. One, it was just a good idea. And 2, your enthusiasm was contagious. And I think that's why we got rolling as quickly as we did. I want to back up just for a minute because I know the Minneapolis Public Library is instantly recognizable to everybody. I just thought I would mention that the Loft is a writer center in the Twin Cities. We will be having our 20th birthday this year, which will be celebrated in the spring. The Loft's purpose is to support the development of individual writers as well as developing an audience for literature in primarily the 7-county metro area, but in greater Minnesota as well. Most of our work has been with adult writers at all levels, which is not to say we're not interested in children, and which is not to say we haven't done some work with children, but it is, we hope, to be a more significant part of our future. Our board had decided this, so your invitation came at just a perfect time for us to begin to contact our teachers who we thought might be interested and take advantage of your locations to move out into the community with our classes.
Well, as you mentioned, the library did handle the logistical aspects of the programming so that we created the promotion, provided the space, collected resources to use within the classes, but you had the responsibility of being basically at the creative end. You had to find the instructors, you had to come up with the course content and structure, and all of which is quite a challenge to begin with, and you had to determine the focus of the classes themselves. And I was wondering if you could talk about that process and also about the fact that you were able to secure a grant to fund this series and to fund the major part of this series, and if you could just speak a bit about that development process from your end, that would help a great deal.
Well, this was not difficult for us because we basically adopted the same process that we use in teaching our adult classes. And there are no teachers on the Loft staff, but in the before any term, we put out an invitation and invite people to respond, or teachers to respond with a proposal, and then those are reviewed by committee, and we try to select in any term those that look not only strong, but provide an interesting distribution of choice. So we did the same thing here, and we're delighted that as many of our teachers as came forward are in fact interested in working with young people. We also wanted to try several different models to see whether it was more appealing to have one class a week for 4 weeks, or to go straight through the week, or 2 classes a week for 2 weeks, or what was the appropriate intensity from both the teacher's point of view and then from student reaction, if we could ascertain that. And this week, I think it is, we'll be sitting down with the teachers to talk about what worked best, and are there some models we just believe are superior to others. The funding, because when classes are taught in the Minneapolis Public Library, they may not charge a fee. We knew from the beginning that we had to raise grant money in order to compensate the teachers. And what we have done is been able to syndicate money from several sources. And we hope to keep right on doing that. We believe there really is potential support out there. And we think we're getting more and more experience, and we'll be able to come forward with some strong proposals that will allow us to continue.
Thank you. Well, this was a pilot project, and we're certainly working on evolving it for the future, and a very vital element to that process are the instructors involved, and Linda Wang and John Minczeski were 2 of those instructors, and I was wondering how you first perceived teaching young adults, if you prefer that to teaching adults, if you create a class differently for teens than you do for adult sessions, and what about this particular series, the fact that it's being offered for teens and in a library setting, appealed to you initially? Can I start with
Well,
John?
I do a lot of work with kids anyway in the Writers in the Schools program. During the winter and the spring, I'm working not every week, but almost every week in different schools. And I'm a strong believer that in working with kids, in writing, and one of the frustrations I have in doing a 1-week residency in a school is that there isn't any follow-up at all. And this, I think, offers a kind of a perfect way to get that, more of a continuum going for the kids who are interested in writing. I think some of the kids might be frustrated too, because there isn't always that much of an opportunity to be involved in it. The Loft has been interested in working with kids before, and I've taught young adult classes for the Loft in 1992, for example. But I think this is a great opportunity to keep going on in a regular way. The difference between this and adult class is in an adult class there's a little more critiquing that goes on, or at least I do, and I try to get more group critiquing going on so that people can look at each other's works and begin to evaluate them, to do it in a very positive way. With young adults, what I try to do is to generate as much poetry, as much writing as possible, and to give them a lot of exercises, a lot of writing ideas they can use. I use a lot of models of poems my own and poems by other people that they can, and suggest ways that they can go off on it. So it's always successful. I only wish I had more students show up in my class, but I had one of those models, for consecutive weeks, and we'll be evaluating that.
Another chance, yeah.
I hope so.
Well, Linda, what appealed to you about this writing workshop series?
I almost wish I would have had a few less. There were some days where we were just crawling over each other. What appealed to me, I loved having it in the libraries, and I loved having it be a community-based thing. I also really appreciated the fact that for people wanting to take those classes, that it was free. Because I too have been in situations sometimes where I'm teaching, I probably teach adolescents more than I do any other age group. As a matter of fact, it was, my first adult class was kind of a shock to me. But I think to not have them pay and really be able to show up made it feel more truly community-based to me and community accessible. I like that a lot. And there was just good energy. We had a wonderful group. I mean, there were just a lot of us. That was awesome. We should have traded a few, but I like the nerve, the guts that I think that somebody can write with at that age, as opposed to getting too jaded and going like, oh, I hope I don't make a mistake, or this has got to be a good piece, or I mean, what makes a good piece? Voices are unique. And that's more than anything, no matter what age I'm teaching, what I hope to get across is that your voice is specifically yours and no one else has one like it. That you just simply focus on getting yours to be the most of what you are, instead of, and it's very good to admire, listen to other writers and see what they're doing, but ultimately you want to be like yourself, not like them. And so we did a lot of silly things. One thing is I found, it is my favorite age to work with. When I get my first adult class, as I said, was unnerving because I thought we were going to be very serious. And what I learned is that the best thing, at least I think, you can do as a writer at any age is not take yourself so terribly seriously that you can't afford to take risks. If you can't afford to try something you haven't tried before, ultimately you're going to do safe work that isn't the best work you could do.
Well, I know your workshop was Writing Outside the Lines, which was more about spontaneous kinds of writing, and it was at our Walker branch in the Uptown neighborhood, and
Yes,
I know we
was.
got a very good response up there. I was wondering, though, if you could go a little more in depth about your workshop, what kind of exercises you offered, and I know you had a few interesting experiences in the neighborhood as well, so if you'd care to elaborate, feel free.
Well, it's an interesting neighborhood. I think that Hennepin Lake is a fascinating place to see and be seen, and you can always nip across the street and get a croissant or a hamburger or something, and just the world swims in that general intersection. And I think that probably one of the things that particular library faces more than other libraries do is they worry about people getting in and setting fires, stuff like that. At least that's what we were told. So we were coming in and getting out and locking up. And I had all these exercises where now we're going to go out and we're going to use the neighborhood, and you're going to write a portrait. It was a scavenger hunt, essentially. You're going out looking for certain things and then you're writing. But so I had a number of people who were scavenging because they'd been told to, and were sitting in parts of the library and on the roof, and were thrown out because officials thought they were loiterers. And so they're doing what I was told. And going, yeah. But you should take some risks again. So that turned out to be one of them. We got so cold. There was a day that we were doing one, I think that a lot of people enjoyed, is we just had topics. We threw them in the middle of the floor, and then it was just kind of a vast sprint. You picked the topic out, and there were some strange, like one was swimming, another was the Avon lady. Just write whatever comes to your mind. And that kind of pressure is also freedom. You go, you're not going to make a mistake. Whatever you say is what, and people like that. That was the day we were air conditioned, and half the people took some of their notebooks into the bathroom where it was warmer. I shudder to think what somebody might have thought who just came innocently in to use the bathroom for its intended purpose and found what they found. But
Someone taking notes.
someone's writing.
I sure appreciate your flexibility. Now, John, you had taught the Making a Poem class at Washburn, and I know you must have a set exercise pattern that you use, so if you could talk about a few of those here.
Well, what I like to do is use models of fairly successful poems that kids can get an idea of how to make a poem. One of them is a memory exercise based on a photograph or on a film of the family, like a home movie of the family when they were younger, and to write about things that were going on. I have a copy of the poem with me, and I can read it so you can see what it's like if we have time. You're assuming we do.
I'm assuming that we do.
Okay. Well, this is the poem, and then I use this as a way that kids can take off in their own poetry. But it's in my own case. It's called Home Movie 1952. My older brother sits with the grown-ups at Monopoly, moving his race car step by step along the worn path to Boardwalk. My mother, taking care of the baby, is too busy to play anything, but holds him up, and the camera's strong lights make him squint, then cry. My childless aunt has nothing but time, and my father and uncle, who smokes a pipe, play ring toss. My father, in his green wool Christmas shirt, is happy, planting his feet for the toss, curling his right arm gracefully toward the ceiling. He looks like Hermes standing on one foot. The lunge misses, even this brings a smile. Great Aunt Nana's scratching my back, and the pressure of her nails is so slight it feels like wind. She will refuse to leave the farm, afraid of dying away from it. Can I tell you it was winter, as it is now, and time for telling such stories? And in that house there is a smell of hot air from the furnace in the basement. Can I tell you that my father will never be this happy again? Happiness has to push through so much clutter now before arriving to his face as a smile. But with 2 minutes still left in the movie, he stands relaxed and easy in baggy pleated pants before I or anyone has a chance to break his heart. 2 minutes for the projector to whir the image out, for Aunt Bessie and Pearl to stand in the doorway holding pies and homemade cranberry sauce. 2 minutes for my father to be with everything he wants in that small room, and he can smile like that in those 2 minutes and need nothing in return.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being
you're
here.
welcome.
That's a wonderful way to end this first part of the segment.
Thank you, Adela.
Thank you. Now we'll have the opportunity to get the perspective of some of the students who attended the workshop. With me today are Tierza Langston and Claire Barone, who were both in the Real Poems for Real Lives class taught by Roseanne Lloyd at the Central Branch, and also Najia Kweik, who attended Linda Wing's workshop, Writing Outside the Lines, at Walker. And thank you all for coming today. How many of you were writing before you attended these workshops? Is this something you regularly did, or Teirza?
Sometimes, not all the time, but when I really had an urge to, like inspiration.
And what about you, Claire?
Well, usually I'd write, like, when something really important happened to me. I'd write about the important things in my life, and I would write, when something important happened and things like that.
And Najia, were you writing regularly before?
Yeah, I was writing regularly before, and a friend of mine and I, we do poetry readings kind of around the cities. And so I thought it would be neat to, if I don't hear a lot of other people's writing, so I thought it would be neat to get another perspective on that.
Well, you chose different workshops. Teirza and Claire chose the Real Poems, and Najia, you chose Writing Outside the Lines. What appealed to you, Teirza, about the Real Poems class?
Well, that's kind of hard to answer because there were a lot of things. But mainly it was just that I like writing poetry and I like getting new ideas, and especially for real life.
Were you also writing poetry, Claire?
Yes, that's mainly what I write. And I chose that class because, you know, like Teirza said, I also wanted to get some new ideas. And also, it was the only one open to me since I'm 14, and the others were all for older people.
Oh, I see. Well, we'll be offering it again, and then you can move into some of the other classes. And I know the writing outside the lines description talked about a lot of spontaneous writing. Is that where your interest lies?
Yeah, because a lot of times I feel like I'm too judgmental on myself as to, you know, if I write something, is it good enough to write down? Is it good enough to type up? Is it good enough for anybody else to hear it? And I felt like if I did some exercises on, you know, spontaneous writing, it would really help my creative process or whatever along.
Could you talk about some of the writing exercises that you liked in that class, and perhaps read something that you wrote while you were attending those 4 sessions?
Sure. We did like a lot of just write whatever comes to your mind kind of exercises, and some that were really neat were I think she mentioned this before, where we just put different topics in the middle. We picked one, and then we would write for a certain amount of time on that. And then one day she sent us all out. We had talked about rhythm in poems, and she sent us all out to the area where we were at Walker, wherever we wanted to be, and we could write whatever we want. So, did you want me to read this though?
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
This is one that I wrote that day when we went out to look at what was around us. The city is children, some rich, some poor, mostly unaware. The city is cruel and unusual and not altogether unpleasant. The city is Ansel Adams in The Twilight Zone and George Bush in Mickey D's with Saddam Hussein. The city is surrounded by lakes, suburbs of insecurity, and water is pumped in. The city is low-riders and slick ponytails of pseudo-Africanism and bell-bottoms of pseudo-rebellion. The city is planted wildflowers and trees surrounded by metal grates, and youth job corps to make the streets nicer to live on. The city is vain and relentless, brutal sun seeking skin as canvas for its warm graffiti. The city is sirens and yelling and headaches, but also long walks and hurried rest, and peaceful chaos. The city is Dan and Connie kissing on the evening news, and buses filled with hopeless people and an occasional lost child. The city is home to dealers of powdered happiness and shiny ladies in furs they can't afford. The city is tame birds who will smile and sing for a French fry or Italian dessert, and red Buicks with gay rights rainbows on them. The city is rollerbladers with tattoos of past lovers and nightclubs of pulsing bodies and old money made new. The city is lovers hanging on for dear life or dear fantasy and fathers who drink firewater. The city is black-clad souls who think they suffer but don't strive to relieve the pain, and Chevy Suburbans of anonymous outsiders with cameras. The city is cave-like libraries and streetball at the Y, where there were 6 fights over leather 8-ball jackets and running shoes with swirls and air pumps. The city is grunge and denim and cotton and mace and old ladies shaking their white permed heads at change. The city is studied by statisticians and lawyers atop mirrored buildings who don't know it's about to digest them, and little girls in frilly dresses or even diapers who laugh. The city just is.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Claire, could you talk about some of the exercises you liked in your class and what you felt was the most valuable thing you learned while you were attending?
Well, what I really liked was the exercises we used to get started writing. For instance, we were writing poems about our fears, and we started out writing a list of our fears. And because of the exercises, I wrote a poem that I wouldn't usually have. So it sort of surprised me. Gave me some new ideas.
Great. Is that something you're using now in your writing process as well?
Yeah. Usually before when I wrote, I would just write without any preparation, without any lists or anything. And now it's sort of an easier way to go about it.
Thanks. Teirza, you took the same class, Real Poems for Real Lives. Could you talk about some of the exercises or any particular one that you liked? And if you wanted to read from one of your works, you could do that as well.
Do I have to?
Well, it's your choice. If you'd like to talk a little bit more about the process, that's fine too.
Yeah.
If we just get your experience, that's wonderful.
Well, my favorite exercise was when we drew the picture and we wrote a poem about what we felt from it. Because from then on I've been doing that, like looking at things and thinking about how I could make a poem from this scene. Because it's like there is a scene and it'll never happen again. And if you can capture it on a piece of paper, then you can relive it, even if it is only on paper.
So you find you're using what you learned in these classes. Would you say all of you that that's true for? And do you think it's changed the way you look at the world now, or?
Yeah, a little bit. I think one of our assignments, our only homework assignment, I guess you would say, was to make a list of our favorite words that just we like the sound of. And I find myself doing that sometimes when I can't think of a word, instead of, going to the thesaurus or whatever, just writing down words that I like that would fit into what I'm trying to say. So it changed how I write, and since I write a lot, I guess it did change my outlook.
Did you feel that maybe it encouraged you to move more into the writing process now, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it did. Mm-hmm. Because it did. I forgot what I was going to say.
That's okay. Now we hope to be offering this series again in the new year, and a slew of courses to choose from in the same way we offered this past summer. Would any of you think that you'd be going on into perhaps some of the other classes? Did you find it a rewarding enough experience so that you'd want to explore these classes further?
Probably.
Yeah.
You would, Teirza? And how about you, Najia?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I feel like if we had had longer, that we could have done so much more. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would definitely, even in taking like the same class, if it was over a longer period, because I think there's like kind of an endless variety of what you can do in each class.
Okay, and so are you still being surprised now in things you do and in your writing? And
yeah, in the past I was writing a lot of the same things over again. I couldn't think of anything new. And with the exercises, with the new ways of writing that I got from this class, it's like opened up a whole new world.
That's great. Well, thank you all for being here and for attending our classes. I look forward to seeing you again in the new year.
Would we be on television then?
WordWorks is a fine example of how a public library system can cooperate with arts organizations in its community, and how young people can become involved in writing and reading. Thanks for joining us on All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin Cities Metropolitan Library Service Agency.